So you can tell on this video, this is gonna be a Teddy Roosevelt video. We're just doing some things just sideways here. Um, Normally I will shoot the recordings from a top-down vantage point. It feels really good. There's, it's somewhat typical of what you'll see on YouTube and drawing instructions, but there's always been a interesting conundrum I've had because I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be drawing over the top of it. And if I'm over on the left side of the drawing, most of the drawing is going to be covered up by my hand. And so, here, I'll just pause for a second. You can see that with just a super small pencil sketch to get the outer, proportions of the head and shoulders, and then we dive right into a Sharpie marker. This is in keeping with the Inktober idea. But man, that Sharpie marker is just like those felt tip pens. If you've paid attention and watched some of the other commentary videos, those felt tip pens have no love for the paper. They will just dominate that paper. So same thing goes for the Sharpies. They just dominate. They do not care about that paper, and the paper's a sponge, and it just takes the super dark ink, and there's not a lot of variation you can do with the line work on that Sharpie. It's just kind of a pretty thick black line. You can see here with the Bic again, our Old Faithful, the angle really kind of lets us get inside of the hand here, which is great. So we can see more detail. We actually probably have a better look at the drawing the full time. You see the eye placement, a little bit of the hairline. Now we're fleshing out some of the nose. The only downside of this view is we're going to see kind of a perspective shift on the drawing the whole time. It allows me as a drawer to be a little bit more on top of the drawing, so the drawing perspective will probably be better in the end, and for me as I'm drawing, but not for this view because it's always going to be skewed. But I think we'll gonna go with it this time and just see what happens. I think this is going to be a really fun view. I've done other drawings too where I've shot this view and one over the top and been able to switch back and forth between both of them. It's great. Ultimately, it takes a long time to shoot, and it just becomes really clumsy around the desk. Yep, so here we have that little cleft in his upper lip that establishes the distance between the nose and the upper lip. And I think the easiest thing to draw is generally not the top of the upper lip, but it's the part where the upper and bottom lip meet together. Is that midway section, and then you know that you have some room above it and below it. The only downside is sometimes we may make a bad calculation on the size of the lip and then the size of the skin from the top of the lip to the nose. So that might get a little bit crunched. So we'll see how that works out here. And at the end, we'll have a nice view of the final drawing. So after I'm done drawing and before I package it up, I generally pull it away and I scan the drawing so that we have a really good representation of it. And in the past, I haven't scanned some of the drawings, especially around figure drawing and some of the other things. Drawings, sometimes they get framed and they don't get scanned, and it's really hard to understand what they look like later because they're always behind some plexi or some glass, and then you can't get a great photograph of them. So I generally like to scan them. Here we're setting up the glasses, so very light mark making with that pen. The Bic ball that's in the top of that pen, I don't know how it works. We'll probably have to do a little deep dive, watch some videos on it, but it does allow you to get this super light, maybe a 10% of the full color. So you do get to sketch and play a little bit more. And you'll still see some of those other pencil lines hanging around. Those are there for the architectural bit. They may get erased later. I don't remember if that's what happens, but you can see here we're really fleshing out some of the the color of the nose, like the tonal density of that. And so, much like the last, some of the last drawings that you may have watched on the channel, or you should go watch. There's some really good ones out there. I did a Scott Besant one. That one is, it's not my favorite, but it's interesting. The commentary is fun. I think the one I just uploaded was before this commentary was a psychedelic drawing, a really cool marker drawing. So take a look at that one. That one's a lot of fun. We've got the connection from his lips to the side of the face, and now we're doing that underlip. And I did talk about this in a previous video, but that underlip is really what you're kind of being able to put some of the shadow in. So you should have a mustache. Teddy Roosevelt's known for some kind of wild facial hair. He could have some cool beard, mustache thing going on. I think he does. And underneath that bottom lip, there's going to be a shadow. The bottom lip itself, if you look at any photograph, you're going to see that catches light. Because it's protruding out there, it's like a little ledge for the light to fall on. It kind of highlights. So in general, you're not drawing a lot on that upper lip. Maybe a few of the creases of the lip, but you're going to be drawing underneath the lip. So then there's all the shadows from underneath the lip to the chin. And there's a lot of different ways that the skin moves around the front of the jaw, and it connects. So there's all this flesh, and in his case, he's got a beard. Yeah, we're just getting the bottom of that chin. I'm gonna actually try and find here on my setup if I have the picture, because I want to know what we're drawing from. Okay, so this is the final. Okay, he does not. I apologize. In this, he does not have a beard. So that is the bottom of the chin, and now we're establishing his collared shirt. So he's got a nice white collared shirt, and it connects, from that side of the head where it kind of juts out on that outline. That's a perfect point. That's the collared shirt. And so we're going to have some creases and some other things around his neck, but the collar is probably going to be pretty white. And we do have a tie, and we have his overcoat, and I think he actually wore a vest underneath, or whatever that other, I think it's called a vest, I don't know. I don't wear a lot of suits, so I don't know. Probably a 3-piece suit back in the day. Looking dapper, with his mustache and his really light-rimmed glasses. Yeah, setting this up. Setting up the top collar here. And then, yeah, there's a few lines. And this is one of those moments where if you want that collar white, you can't really put down a lot of other lines. You have to leave that just be and go for it. So, all right, what are we doing? We're contemplating where we go next. Now we can start fleshing in some of that, because we know where the edge of that collar is going to be. So now we can start putting in some shadows. We know this is going to be darker. This is underneath his face. So he's got a whole face hanging over his neck. So this is all going to be in shadow here. The question is how much shadow, and where does the chin and the neck kind of come back together? And how do we, what's the elegant way of doing that and putting that together to communicate it, effectively? And I do think that's another thing about drawing, and that maybe people aren't, thinking about quite as much. I do like these moments where it just fills in. But ultimately what we're trying to do is communicate depth. We're trying to communicate volume. We're trying to communicate, portrait, presence, and all that other stuff. So in some cases, there's a lot of choices that go into communicating effectively. In this case, we're drawing with pen, and we have a nice solid outline to work with, and that looked like it came out pretty good. I feel like the proportions are really nice. And then it's just pen, so we don't have to worry about color. We don't have to worry about color overlapping or anything like that, or mixing weird, because we're using weird markers or untested things. This is a ballpoint pen. We're going to be able to get a lot done. I think the time scale of this is about 40 minutes total. which is pretty typical. I think half an hour to 50 minutes. So it's right in the middle there. And it's not a particularly big drawing. I think this is a 3x5. But, 40 minutes on a 3x5, you're going to get a lot of little marks in there. Yeah, and there's his cheek. He did have a kind of a healthy cheekbone, healthy side of the face. I forget what my brothers would have called that, like a meathead. He had, looked like he ate some steaks in his day, with those strong jaws. And then he has, he's kind of got that depression between his cheekbone and then how his jaws kick out, so that sinks in just that little bit, creates that shadow. And here you're kind of sculpting. See the direction of the pen changes a little bit. Sometimes just little. It's really about adding in tone, and sometimes the direction of the pen is really important because it establishes direct, movement, and some of the directional, like a plane of the face. So sometimes, how that gets put in might really matter. I think you'll see it a lot on the clothes. Sometimes it really helps with the texture of the clothes. And it's hard to see here, but the direction underneath that nostril doesn't go straight down. It actually goes to the side, as if it's angling towards that line in between his cheek and his lips, or his mouth. So it angles towards that in the bottom corner of his mouth. Super subtle, but the direction of lines, if you're just starting out and you're thinking about drawing, it's something that I think about a lot. I probably should, work on even more. Probably will continue to do so. Drawing is a lifelong adventure. It's not something that you wake up one day and say, I nailed it, and now I'm the best drawer in the world, or anything remotely close to that. It's an adventure, and it continues. So I think direction and being able to communicate more with less lines is definitely something that I am thinking about. This drawing, when it's done, is not going to be short of line work or mark making. There's going to be a lot of mark making, especially lower on the drawing, like around his mouth and his neck, even probably on the side of his head and his ear. There's going to get a lot of marks over there. His forehead is going to be pretty light. I think the collar is going to be pretty light. You'll get into some good marks in his clothes, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure this guy wore a lot of like tweed and wool, and he was kind of the man about the woods. So when he came, I think when he got more into the politics and the federal, national politics, and he had to get out of the woods, he probably still brought some of those natural materials with him. I can imagine him in a cool tweed. But now we got that big bushy mustache, and I don't think that that's going to get too much more. It was probably not white, but I think this is the artistic decision to leave it a pretty stark, so it stands out and it comes forward. It may get muddy if we start putting a lot of marks in that mustache may get muddy and may just get lost. We definitely don't want the mustache to get lost. We don't want to make it, I don't know if it should be too dark. We'll see. Ooh, I like the way that neck's coming out. You can see that there's some shape there. There's some volume that it's moving around a little bit. Even though it looks somewhat similar in gray tone, when you look at that, you can definitely tell that there's some shape and there's some movement and there's some volume there. So yeah, and those marks, it does feel like it's just kind of shading it in and just bringing an overall color to the area. And that can happen if we have the same mark making just across the plane, and it's just, hey, we're just filling it in with color. And sometimes there's going to be these moments where you'll see it kind of look like a ridge or look like a series of lines, and it's kind of filling in a plane. Or here's this chunk of flesh that needs to be rendered at the same time, or it kind of moves the same way. So yeah, you'll see certain runs where it's, yeah, right there was one, and there'll be little runs where it kind of happens, and you're like, oh, that's maybe a muscle group, or that's, a chunk of flesh right there. Yeah, it's fun to watch this back. It's really odd at the angle, and I know that there's not a lot of active going on there. We gotta look at some fingers or whatever, but um, I really appreciate just looking at this come together. It was a simple white page and just went crazy with that Sharpie, and now we're here just refining for probably a half an hour, 40 minutes. He does have kind of a big nose on this one. I don't know if he actually has a big nose, but it felt appropriate. With a bigger nose, call it the mustache. And that's just not something you see today. I don't think anybody wears a handsome mustache like Teddy Roosevelt did. Yeah, now we're getting in. There's some shadows around the glasses area, and there's going to be that little bit of metal where it sits on his nose and has those little pads that sit on your nose and the sides that hold up the glasses. So gotta be careful to communicate those things, but not get them too heavy. And they're slightly important, but we don't want to give them too much importance. We want to make sure that we know there's glasses. There has to be something with the edge of the glasses. This is actually always an interesting part, is creating the cheek. Because you're like, wow, the cheeks are kind of a big part of a face. They are, but they're also catching a lot of light. And you're not really drawing the cheekbone. You're drawing the shadows around the cheekbones. You're drawing the shadows, that the cheekbones create. You're not drawing generally like cheeks or cheekbones. You're drawing some of those little mini shadows. And then there's, just different planes as it curves around the eye sockets and the cheekbones, and then the jaw, and where all the muscle groups sit. And I'm not an aficionado of the muscle groups of the face, but that's definitely, if you're getting started, you want to look at some of the muscle groups of the face and how they connect. I think it's going to be some of those eureka moments when you see how stuff's built. And honestly, I could myself just take a look at a pair of glasses. If you're drawing somebody with glasses, take a look at a pair of glasses that are like what they would be wearing. It's going to be very helpful to understand the anatomy of a pair of glasses. Because if you're not really looking at it, or you don't wear them yourself, you're just kind of drawing a line with a circle. And that's not really what a pair of glasses is. It's so much more complicated than that. How they sit on the face and how they work. Yeah, so I think the more informed you are, the better. And if, in this case, just like the previous drawing, if you've drawn, in our case right now, this is Teddy Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt. If you've drawn his face before, you're going to be better off. This is looking pretty good. I haven't drawn this I think is my first time, but I guarantee you 3 or 4 more drawings of his face in, probably a week or 2 weeks, you'd get really good at understanding his face, and the drawings would just come out even better. His hairdo, his face, his smile. I think he had a really rich smile. Somebody I know has a really cool Teddy Roosevelt sticker on their truck, and it's definitely a worn down sticker, but I think it's of him smiling, and it looks like it's hand drawn, or it was from a drawing, and it's just beautiful. I think that actually helped influence me drawing him today. But yeah, he's an interesting character. I think some of the big claims to fame, I think he helped establish the many of our national parks. So let me just confirm that, but I think that's the case. Teddy Roosevelt is very very instrumental in setting up some of the national parks. Let's see what we got. Oh, he was a junior. Okay. 26th President of the United States from 1901 to 1909. Is involved in New York politics and served as the state's governor for 2 years. And he's been in politics quite a bit, but I know that he went out west at some point. And he had a lot to do. I don't know if he was in the Rough Riders. Let me take a look. He had some conservation. Oh, he oversaw the construction of the Panama Canal. That kind of makes sense for him. And I know that he was out west quite a bit. And the national park, I think he may have established or helped set up a big chunks of the National Park Service. Yeah, he liked sports, hiking, going hunting on trips, and doing all that stuff in his school years. And he went to Harvard. Wow. Yeah, I think easily, if you're enjoying this, easily go and watch a Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt documentary. I think he's probably very interesting fella. And it's probably even outside of politics. He's probably just a very interesting guy. Yeah, I think looks amazing. I think he was he did speeches all over the place. He went hunting. There's this awesome picture. Maybe I was also inspired. There's a picture of him riding a moose. I think it's photoshopped, or it's like it's not legit, but it's awesome. Like a president riding a moose in the water it's cool. So yeah, take a look. Man, this is really getting sculptural. Just amazing what you can do with a pen. And a pen, not a fancy pen. So if you're also starting and you're thinking about, what tools do I need? I look at other YouTubers, I look at other people drawing on Instagram, and I'm like, wow, what kind of beautiful pens and ink and, Japanese brushes and all this wonderful stuff that they're doing. You can also do it with a simple pen. And if you can't get a pen, if you're feeling like you don't have access, people make and give away pens all the time. Was looking into giving, making some pens with some, with a name on it or whatever. It's like just giving away pens. I think they're really cheap, and look what you can do with them. I've even seen the YouTube channels that they have. Someone draws with a burnt matchstick. Like there's so many ways in. I don't think you have to go to a burnt matchstick point, but I think, pens, pencils, you can do tons with a number 2 pencil and an index card. So here's a Bic pen. And man, I'm just holding on to that. You'll see this in some of the other videos. I've gotten comments about it. Holding the pen caps. I think even some of my friends have said, man, you're really gripping that pen cap, and you should put that aside, get your hand out of there. It's right in the midst of the drawing right now, so that's why it kind of jumps into my mind. That pen cap is like right at his eyeball. Okay, so we're still sculpting. We're still kind of putting in some light, playing with that cheek. We're not yet confident where that cheek and what's going to happen there. Okay, so is this an ear, or is that that's the edge of the glasses? Interesting. Must be the edge of the glass and something else. Yeah, I don't know why that's a circle there. Because I know that glass goes back and hangs on an ear, but I just don't see it. I don't know what the heck that is. And, maybe I don't know where the reference is. I did not save the reference for this drawing. But I think that's probably the only oddity, is this weird circle on the side of his head. It makes sense, though. There's a line that goes and connects to the glasses. We're shading in some of the glass on the bottom. And that lens is always going to refract some light in an interesting way. Yeah, it looks a little bulbous of a cheek there. I like the word bulbous because it's like fleshy, big. It's not. Be careful there, bud. You know those lines. See, that's what I mean when you put in certain lines. Now it looks like there's some weird line on his cheek. Hopefully that gets softened a little bit. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe with all the other lines on it won't be as big of a deal, but yeah, honestly, from looking at this right now, it looks like it could have easily been, with that little bit of blur that's on the camera, looks like it could be pencil. Like there's that level of detail that you're getting out of a pen. It does feel very sketchy, and maybe it's the paper texture plus the ink and the light touch that it's coming off as sketchy, which I like that. I don't know if you like that. I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments. So this is always the other hit or miss part. You're putting these eyes in. You don't really get two chances to put the eyes in. So you can put some dots. You can build them up, and sometimes you make those eyes. They look like kitty cat eyes with big pupils. But if that's not the goal, you really don't have a lot of options. So you got to get it right the first time. They look pretty good. If you tilt your head to the side a little bit, it looks like it lines up pretty good. And it might be me cheating here. Just with the angle of the camera, you can't see everything. Sneaky. And if that's the case, I might do this more often. Okay, so we got through the eyes. We're on to the forehead. Ooh, putting in some of the lines in the forehead. No doubt he had some lines in the forehead. Someone who's dealing with that much stuff, politics for that many years. Went to Harvard. The guy's, man about town who helped set up the Panama Canal. This he's probably had some of those brow moments. He's got some inset wrinkles there. The hard part about that is you don't want to draw. I know I drew the wrinkles, and you're really kind of drawing the shadows of the wrinkles, or the impression of the wrinkles. You don't want to just draw the line of the wrinkle, and sometimes it gets too dark. And in this case, just light enough, kind of the impression of some wrinkles up there, a wrinkle. I think there's going to be one or two more little lines that show up. But we don't want to do too much, because you can easily overdraw stuff like that. Okay, so now he's got a little hair on top of his head. That's good. Oh, there we go. Getting a few little wild strands. Yeah, get a little darker. I mean, it's that easy. Now he's got a full top head of hair. Be a little bit more stragglers. Then we got, I don't know how much more we're going to get on the top of that forehead. Because the light source is coming straight above. You can see it's on his nose. It's above his eyes. It's really kind of stark on top of his head. So we'll see how much more we get. Probably a little bit on the side of his head. And then we still got to get all the suit in there yet. Oh, there we go. We got a little bit more on the forehead. And there's some planes, on the head. They're really subtle, and you don't want to overdo them because it's the light source. You don't want it to be too heavy. But there are definitely panels on the head that create the front part of your skull. So you want to be able to go from, it's kind of a circle, but there's these weird panels in there. So there's going to be a brow ridge, and then there's a little bit of an indent. And then above that, there's going to be the forward part of your skull. And then there's some panels on the side. And I don't think we got the panel on the side. On the part that's done over on the left, you'll see that there's that panel there. But we don't have any of that stuff yet. It'd be right where we are right now. So there should be something there above the eye up to the hairline. We're going to establish a few panels. Okay, here we go. So this is the roundness of the eye socket. Yep. Man, this is looking pretty good. It's happy to I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see it. Ooh, we're getting a little bit. So you definitely want to be able to push that back. That ear is behind the head. So we have quite a bit of that face. We want to be able to show that face going back in space. So, oh, here we go. So this, okay, if this goes all the way to the ear, which it does, great. So that's going to push that part of it back in space, connect it back to the ear. So here's that side panel, yes. So from that brow ridge, it's going to go back like that. That's now the side of your face after your eye. You can feel it on your head. Once that orbital socket ends, you're on the side of your face. So that now is a different side. Sorry if I was covering up the mic. I was touching my face, feeling out my own orbital ridge. Okay. Hey, the face might be done. You never know. They come back at it, but it may be done. So this, it looks like it's... Is this the edge? Is it the shadow, or is it the edge of the... Okay, so this is... I think his three-piece suits. This is the... Alright. Yeah, it might make sense to get this tie going. Yeah, you can see as we're kind of finding the edge of that tie, once we establish the edge, then we can really give her a little bit more. And there you see the direction change with the pen. Yeah. So yeah, be mindful of the direction of the pen, where you're going. And if you're thinking, if you're definitely drawing like textiles, like clothes or something like that, if there's a grain in that clothes, you should be drawing that, with that grain, doing some things like that with the direction of your pen or pencil or whatnot. It's cool to throw down a little bit of color, but think as you're doing that, if you're doing it with line work, consider how that's going to come across, and maybe you're going to use some directional line work to help establish that even more. So it's not just a tonal value, but it's also doing double duty for you. Okay, so there, now we have the tie, we have the vest underneath, and we have a nice shadow between the vest and the top coat. So we got some really nice dark outlines. I don't mind dark outlines. I know that a lot of drawing folks cannot like the outlines. It's like cheating a little bit because nothing in the world is just like beautifully outlined for you. Usually there's just a tonal change that shows the edge of something. But hey man, we're drawing. We can make it how we want it. So I don't mind an outline. I think it's really easy. It helps communicate the edge of something really quickly. It's fun to render. I think actually a lot of this is also a rendering task. So there are other books. There's other things out there about rendering. And I think some of this is drawing and some of this is just rendering. Once you figure out the structure of things and you've got the outline, you've got the structure, you know where everything is, then it's kind of like painting it in and creating the right consistency with color, or the tonal range with whatever you're doing. So, yeah, I think like right now this is rendering. I wouldn't say this is a lot of drawing. This is just creating the right tones and shapes and pushing and pulling things around where they should be. So, that's why, I mean, it might sound weird to say. Sometimes I'll just crush a coloring book if we're out for dinner and they got a coloring book. I can have a lot of fun and just trying to make brown out of a few colors. If there's like a red, blue, and green, I'll try and make brown, or I'll try and do more things with it. So sometimes things just become a rendering activity. So there's not much going on here. It's not like this drawing is about the coat and the jacket and all that and getting that perfect. I think it's just insinuating that there's some architectural clothing and some of the lines of that clothing and how they fall. So you want to make sure that it sits right on them so that it feels right. But I don't think anybody's going to lose sleep over the drawing around all the little nuanced details of his jacket coat here, or his coat jacket. But yeah, ooh, that chin looks really nice. Got a sculptural with all those little lines. Here we go. It's good to see a slightly different side of it. At the end of the video, I'll showcase the scanned image, so you'll see it, in all its glory, top down. Yeah, the other part here is like the edge of the paper. I'll probably go off the edge, but it's, yeah. That darn edge of the paper. You're always going to get a different consistency at the edge. So don't let your critical composition parts be at the edge of a paper, because it's never going to look the same. I did have an instructor at some point when I did go to art school. And I'm sure, ask anybody if you're thinking about going, or if you're a kid, or if you're in school, there's going to be these certain sayings that people say, and it's going to live with you forever. It's going to live rent-free in your brain. And one of the things that a professor told me was, every time two lines intersect, that becomes a point of interest. It creates a point. A line is just a line, but when something intersects that, it becomes a point of interest. And you think the edge of the picture plane is a line, and every time you intersect with it, it creates a point of interest. So, especially if it doesn't render completely, or if it does. So as I'm dragging this pen over the line, you can see I'm starting from the edge, so I'm not going to be on the edge. I'm always going to be above the edge. So if you really want that edge, you got to start inside the paper and pull it off the edge. And so here, as I'm going back and forth and laying ink down both directions, you know that it's never going to get as good off the edge. So that's why here, yeah, you'll see me pull from the top down. And then if it goes off the edge, fine, because I'm picking it up, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down. Okay, well, look at that. We've got a drawing. We do have a few wild pencil marks. I wonder if we're going to clean that up. I'll probably clean it up no matter what, but I don't know if we're going to get it on camera. We might. It might be part of the cleanup process. Oh, we just went straight into... Oh, I probably cleaned it up in between. Okay. So it did get cleaned up. We just didn't capture it on camera. All right, and here we put it in our handy dandy little Mylar sleeve for safekeeping. So it's already, kind of hinged mount in there with archival tape, and now we'll have Teddy slide in his home, keep him safe, and yeah, that'll wrap it up. We'll have here at the end, we've got Teddy Roosevelt. So hopefully you enjoyed this. You can see it looks a little bit different flat. If you like this, please leave a comment. Let me know. Thanks for sticking around. And I'm going to be posting more of these. If you're interested in the time lapse and you don't have 45 minutes to sit around and listen to me talk, if you go to the main political portraits channel, you can see all these in time lapse. So we're doing shorts, we're doing 5-minute videos, and I thought it'd be really fun to just put the full, commentary on the full drawing. So like and subscribe here. Go over to the main political portraits channel, like and subscribe there. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.